I never imagined that a simple invitation could rearrange the rhythm of my life so completely. Back then, it felt harmless, almost considerate. My friends had been complaining for months that our group was getting predictable, that we needed fresh energy, whatever that meant. And she, well, she was the kind of person who carried her own gravity, pulling you in without meaning to. That was what drew me to her in the first place. Her name won't be mentioned here. I promised her anonymity, and I intend to keep it. But I can tell you this, she wasn't the type who entered a room quietly. She didn't do it on purpose, it was simply the way she moved, as if her presence filled every empty space. She laughed with her whole chest, she looked people straight in the eye, and when she spoke, she made you feel like you were the only person worth listening to. When I asked her to join us on that Friday night, I thought I was doing everyone a favor. My friends were thrilled at the idea. They said she'd bring life into our, almost extinct social circle. I didn't argue. In fact, I felt a strange pride introducing her, as though discovering her had been some kind of achievement. The night she first met them, we were at our usual spot, a dimly lit lounge with deep leather chairs and music soft enough that you could actually hear yourself think. She walked in wearing a simple dress, nothing attention-catching, but somehow every head lifted when she stepped through the door. My friends exchanged glances, quick, curious, impressed. I should have known that was a warning. At first everything was perfect. She blended in effortlessly. Within minutes, it felt like she had been part of us for years. She made my friends laugh more than I had seen in months. She asked questions, remembered names, noticed things others overlooked. She mirrored personalities without mocking them, adjusted herself without losing herself. She was effortless, too effortless. By the end of the night, everyone adored her, maybe a little too much. What I didn't expect was how quickly she would become the center of everything. The group chat shifted from my name popping up first to hers. Our weekend plans somehow revolved around her schedule. When she wasn't around, the atmosphere felt thin, like missing a spice you never realized mattered until it wasn't there. And I found myself watching her more closely than I should have. Not in a romantic way, not yet, but in that unsettling manner you observe someone who feels too familiar too soon. She slipped into our circle like she'd always been part of it, and I couldn't decide if I was proud of myself for bringing her in, or uneasy about how naturally she replaced me. The first time I noticed something had changed was a week later. We were all sitting around the table, joking, telling stories, passing drinks. Usually the stories came through me, I was the bridge connecting everyone. But that night, she took my spot without anyone noticing. They leaned toward her, laughed at her comments, responded to her energy. I sat there, smiling, part of the group but somehow moved to the background of a circle I had built. It wasn't until we were walking out that she touched my arm lightly and said, "Thank you for inviting me. I didn't know I needed this." Her smile was warm, genuine, too genuine, and for the first time, something inside me shifted, just a little, almost imperceptibly, like a floorboard creaking beneath unexpected weight. I didn't know it then, but the ground had already started to move. It didn't happen overnight. That's the thing about slow changes. They disguise themselves as harmless progress until you look back and realize how far you've drifted from where you began. At first, I kept telling myself I was imagining it. Friendships grow, dynamics evolve, nothing stays the same forever. But deep down, I knew something was different. She became the quiet center of the group. Not by demanding it, not by forcing anything, just by being herself. Everyone gravitated toward her. My loudest friend softened when she spoke, the competitive one listened instead of arguing, even the introverts opened up around her. It was almost strange, watching how easily she unlocked everyone. And then there was me. I found myself studying her reactions more closely than I should, noticing small shifts in her mood, catching her glances from across the room. I told myself it was just because I introduced her, like I felt some responsibility for her presence. But that wasn't the truth. The truth was simpler and more dangerous. I liked the way she looked at me. One evening, a few weeks after she joined us, we were all at a friend's apartment playing one of those ridiculous guessing games. Someone cracked a joke at my expense, something harmless, but the room erupted with laughter. I laughed too, trying to show I wasn't bothered, though the joke landed a little too close to an insecurity I never acknowledged. She noticed. She tilted her head, studied me for half a second, then cut in with a line so clever and effortless that the joke reversed and suddenly everyone was laughing with me instead of at me. It was subtle, but it meant something. She defended me in a way no one else usually bothered to. I caught her eye afterward. She didn't say anything, just smiled. But it was the kind of smile that lingers longer in your memory than in reality. After that night, she started messaging me more often. Not flirting, at least, not obviously. It was just small things. Did you get home safe? You were quiet today. Hope you're okay. Are you coming on Friday? It's not the same without you. That last one hooked deeper than I was prepared for. The messages weren't inappropriate, but they were intimate in a different way. Like she saw me more clearly than anyone else did. And it felt good. Too good. I told myself it was harmless. People connect. People bond. Nothing wrong with that. But then my friends started asking quietly. Did something happen between you two? Why is she always asking for you? You two seem close. I denied everything, because there was nothing to confess, nothing had happened. And yet, denial felt like a lie, because something was happening. It just hadn't crossed any lines yet. The turning point came on a night when the group went out without me. I had a work deadline and couldn't join them. She texted me the whole time, not constantly, but enough to make me aware of her absence and her presence at the same time. Photos of drinks, moments she thought I'd laugh at, inside jokes translated into messages meant for me alone. At one point she sent, "They're fun, but it's weird without you here." I stared at that message longer than I should have. Later, near midnight, she wrote again. "Are you up?" I said yes. She replied, "Can I call?" She didn't call anyone else. Only me. We talked for 2 hours. About nothing and everything. About the group, about life, about the way she sometimes felt like she didn't belong anywhere until she met us. Until she met me. Her voice softened when she said that. And something inside me, some boundary I had guarded without knowing, shifted. I hung up that night knowing with disturbing certainty that if things continued this way, one of us would eventually cross a line we couldn't uncross. The change had already begun. And yet, I was the only one pretending not to notice. There's a specific kind of tension that builds between two people who both know a line exists but choose to pretend it doesn't. It's a slow, quiet pressure, subtle enough to deny, strong enough to shape every moment. That's what we were living in, she and I, a space between what was allowed and what was wanted. I kept telling myself I wasn't attracted to her. Attraction would have been easier to confess, easier to fight, easier to walk away from. What I felt was more complicated. She made me feel seen, understood, important, things I didn't realize I was craving until she offered them so freely. The first time things shifted physically was so small, so ordinary, that I could have written it off as nothing. We were leaving a cafe after a late lunch, the others having drifted off one by one. She held the door for me, and when I stepped through, she brushed a piece of dust off my shoulder, just a soft, quick touch. But her fingers lingered a second too long. Not long enough to accuse, but long enough to remember. After that, the small touches became part of our language. A hand on my arm when she laughed. Her knee brushing mine when we sat too close on the couch. Her fingers trailing my wrist when I passed her something. None of it meant anything. And yet every bit of it meant everything. The others didn't seem to notice. Or maybe they did, but assumed it was innocent. She was naturally warm, naturally gentle, naturally attentive. But I knew the difference between how she treated the group, and how she treated me. One evening, the group met for dinner at a cozy, dimly lit restaurant. She arrived late, and when she walked in, she scanned the room, skipping everyone else until her eyes landed on me. She smiled, walked straight to the chair beside mine, and sat close enough that our arms brushed. My heart reacted before my mind did. During the meal, everyone was laughing, drinking, exchanging stories, but her attention rarely drifted from me. Whenever someone said something funny, she'd turn to me first, as if my reaction mattered more than the joke itself. After dinner, she asked if I could walk her to her car. It wasn't unusual, we all did that for each other, but there was something different about the way she asked. Softer, almost shy. We walked quietly, the night cool enough that our breaths hung in the air. When we reached her car, she leaned against the door and looked at me in a way that felt far too intimate for a friendship formed only weeks ago. "You've changed things for me," she said. My stomach tightened. "How?" "Before I met you, I felt invisible." Her voice dipped lower. "I don't feel invisible anymore." There were a dozen things I could have said. Should have said. Something about the group. Something about boundaries. Something about not making assumptions. Instead, I said nothing. She took a slow step closer. Not close enough to touch, but close enough that I could feel the heat of her body. She reached out, gently fixing the collar of my shirt as if it were crooked. Her fingers brushed my neck. I felt the world tilt. She didn't kiss me. She didn't have to. The unspoken words between us were louder than anything our lips could have said. Then she whispered, "Good night," slipped into her car, and drove away, leaving me standing in the dark, wondering if I had just imagined the whole thing. But I hadn't, and I knew it. The next group outing felt different. People talked, laughed, joked, but I kept noticing the distance she suddenly placed between us, the way she sat on the opposite side of the room, the way she avoided meeting my eyes. It wasn't coldness, it was caution. Like she was afraid someone else would see what she felt. And what was worse, what terrified me more than anything, was that I felt it too. No line had been crossed. But we were standing on it. And all it would take was one moment, one slip, one choice, for everything we had built to fall apart. The night everything finally cracked wasn't loud or dramatic. It didn't explode the way tension usually does in movies. It unfolded quietly. The way a thread slips loose from a tightly woven cloth, slow at first, then all at once. It was a Saturday evening, and the group had decided to host a small gathering at one of our friends' apartments. Nothing special, just drinks, laughter, music low enough to talk over. I arrived late after a long day, tired but determined not to think too much about her. I didn't want to read into things anymore. I didn't want to analyze every glance, every pause, every silence. But when I walked in, the first thing I did, instinctively, was search for her. She wasn't hard to find. She sat on the couch, her legs tucked beneath her, laughing softly at something one of my friends said. But the moment she saw me, the laughter dipped. Not stopped, just softened. She sat up a little straighter, as if pulled by an invisible string, and for a moment, the room faded into a blur behind her. I nodded at her, a quiet greeting across the crowd. She looked away. That was the first cut of the night. Hours passed in fragments, drinks poured, conversations drifted, jokes spilled across the room. But underneath the noise, there was an undercurrent only she and I felt. A magnet pulling, resisting, pulling again. Eventually someone suggested a game, not the silly party games we usually played, but something deeper. Honesty or dare, they called it. An adult version, more psychological than physical. I wasn't in the mood, but I stayed. Leaving would have looked suspicious, so I sat, trying to keep my expression neutral. She sat across from me now. It was her idea to sit there. I knew it the moment I saw her move her seat. Avoidance often reveals more than intent. The questions started harmless. Childhood fears, guilty pleasures, embarrassing memories. Then someone asked, "What's one thing you want to say to someone here, but can't?" It was supposed to be playful. But the room fell quiet. When it was her turn, she hesitated. Her fingers tightened around her glass, knuckles whitening slightly. She didn't look at me at first. She looked at everyone else, as if searching for a safer place to land her words. Then, finally, her eyes found mine. "I want to say," she began softly, "that sometimes, someone enters your life at the exact moment you didn't know you needed them. And it scares you, because you don't know how to handle it." The room didn't think much of it. They hummed, nodded, smiled. But I felt the weight of every syllable like she had dropped a stone into my chest. I almost spoke, almost matched her honesty with my own. But before anything could form on my tongue, someone changed the subject, and the moment dissolved into laughter again. Later, as the night thinned and people drifted away, she came to me quietly. No drama, no witnesses. Just the two of us standing in the dim hallway near the door. You left early last time, she said. You didn't say goodbye. I swallowed. You were busy. You could have still said something. Her voice wasn't accusing, but it wasn't neutral either. It carried a kind of sadness I wasn't prepared for. I was trying to give you space, I admitted. Her expression shifted, surprised, confused, something else I couldn't name. She stepped closer, not enough to be inappropriate. Just enough to be undeniable. I don't need space from you, she whispered. That was the moment everything tipped. Because I knew what she meant. And she knew I knew. Her eyes softened in a way that was too intimate, too raw to pretend about. I could feel the line between us vibrating, begging to snap. Then what do you need? I asked, my voice barely above a breath. She looked down, then lifted her gaze again, slow, deliberate, brimming with the kind of honesty she had held back for weeks. I need you, she said. Just that. 2 words. Quiet, controlled, dangerous. Her voice didn't shake. Mine did. We stood in that narrow hallway, the air thick enough to cut. She didn't touch me. I didn't touch her. But everything in her posture, in her eyes, in her trembling breath said what neither of us had dared say aloud. She stepped back first. A small, decisive retreat. I should go, she whispered. And then she slipped away. I stood there long after her footsteps faded, staring at the empty doorway. The line was gone, not crossed, erased, and suddenly I knew, with a certainty that chilled me, we had reached the point where nothing would ever be the same again. The days that followed her confession felt unreal, like I was walking through a world slightly tilted, where everything looked familiar but nothing felt the same. I told no one, of course. Some truths are too delicate, too explosive, to share out loud. And hers, her truth came with consequences neither of us had dared to imagine when all this began. We didn't speak the day after. Not a word, not a message. That absence itself became louder than any conversation could have been. I kept checking my phone, half expecting a text, half dreading it. But she stayed silent, and I wondered if she regretted everything she'd said, that she needed me, that she didn't want space from me, that something in her had shifted the moment I walked into her life. But the silence didn't last. 3 days later, she reached out. Are you free tonight? No explanation, no context, just that. I told myself I shouldn't go. I told myself it would make things worse. But the truth was, I wanted to see her. I wanted answers. I wanted clarity or closure or something that made sense of the chaos simmering in my chest. So I went. She had asked me to meet her at a quiet rooftop lounge, one of those places with soft lighting, distant city noise, and enough privacy for secrets to breathe freely. She was already there when I arrived, standing near the railing, the wind playing with her hair. She didn't turn at the sound of my footsteps. She waited until I was standing beside her. Thank you for coming, she said softly. You asked, I replied. She exhaled, slow and shaky. I owe you an explanation. You don't, I said, even though I desperately wanted one. She finally faced me. I never expected this to happen. Not with you, not with anyone in your circle. What's this? I asked quietly. Her eyes softened. You know. I did know, but hearing her say it out loud made it harder to breathe. She looked down at her hands. The night we first met, it felt easy. Natural. Like I fit somewhere for the first time in a long time. And you were the one who made me feel that way. I swallowed hard. I didn't mean to complicate things. It wasn't you. She shook her head. It was me. I didn't know how to handle the way I felt. So I tried to pretend it was just friendship. I tried to stay on the safe side of the line. And now, I asked. Now, she whispered, the line is gone. And that terrifies me. Her honesty hit me deeper than her confession. Because I felt the same fear vibrating inside me, the fear of wanting something I wasn't supposed to want, of losing control over a situation I had created without meaning to. I don't want to ruin your friendships, she said. I don't want to take your place or change things the way I already have. I needed you to know. I do know, I said. But what do you want from me? Right now, in this moment. She didn't hesitate. The truth. Silence stretched between us, thick and trembling. I had a choice, to lie for the sake of balance or to tell the truth and accept whatever came after. So I said it. I care about you, more than I should. Her breath hitched, not from surprise, but from relief. The distance between us closed slowly, but not with touches or reckless impulses. She simply stepped closer until our arms brushed, until the warmth of her presence settled into the space between us. We can't undo this, she murmured. I know. We can't pretend anymore. I know. Then what do we do? I looked out over the city lights, aware of how fragile this moment was, how easily it could break into something beautiful or something destructive. We move carefully, I said. We stay honest. We protect each other, and we don't let this become something we regret. She nodded, tears glimmering but never falling. I can do that. Then she leaned her head lightly against my shoulder. Not a kiss, not a promise, just a quiet acknowledgement of everything we had become. No one caught her. No secrets were exposed. No disasters erupted. She remained anonymous. So did I. But the truth stayed between us, beating quietly like a second pulse. And from that night on, everything truly changed, not in scandal, not in chaos, but in the subtle way two lives shift when they've crossed a line neither planned to erase. This story is a fictional mature drama meant for entertainment only. All characters are anonymous, and any resemblance to real people is purely coincidental. Viewer discretion is advised. Thank you for staying with this story till the end. If the twists, emotions, and tension kept you hooked, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. I'd love to know what part struck you most. Your support helps me bring even more gripping stories your way. Stay tuned, because the next one might be even more intense.